Christ suffered for you and left you an example to have you follow in his footsteps. He did no wrong. No deceit was found in his mouth. When he was insulted, he returned no insult. When he was made to suffer, he did not counter with threats. Instead, he delivered himself up to the one who judges justly. In his own body, he brought your sins to the cross, so that all of us, dead to sin, could live in accord with God's will. By his wounds, you were healed. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. This is a passage from the letter of the Apostle Peter, the first letter, chapter 2, verse 21 to 24. And it's a nice reading that shows to us, in a way, the heart of Holy Week. Holy Week is a time where we enter into and meditate upon the mystery of the suffering and death and the resurrection of Jesus. And it's something that we've meditated upon throughout Lent, and we've tried to keep the suffering of Jesus before our eyes during this season. I tell people that during Lent I prefer to pray the sorrowful mysteries of the Rosary every day of Lent. It kind of helps me to think more and more about the suffering of Jesus. In fact, I tell this people a lot, and I remember a couple years ago I was saying Mass, a morning Mass, on a Monday morning in the parish, and I told people in my sermon that I like to say the sorrowful mysteries of the Rosary every single day of Lent, and I'm thinking, okay, they're going to follow my example. And the Mass ended, and at the end of the Mass, a woman turned around to the people and announced something like, well, we're going to have a holy hour after Mass today. We're going to pray the Rosary, and we're going to meditate on the joyful mysteries of the Rosary. And I was like, so much for them listening to me. So they went and they started the joyful mysteries of the Rosary, and I snuck out of the church. And I went over to the rectory and I fixed myself a cup of green tea. And I was like, these people, they think it's Christmas Day. But I want them to know that it's Good Friday every single day of Lent. Anyway, they're good people, very good people. They know who they are. Good people, and I'm glad they prayed. But I prefer the sorrowful mysteries every single day of Lent. Now, the sorrowful mysteries of the Rosary, the Stations of the Cross, the Crucifix, the Passion narrative on Palm Sunday and Good Friday, really moves us to see who Jesus is and what his mission is. This letter from St. Peter is a short but deep meditation on Jesus in the time of his tremendous suffering. And he says that Jesus, in his suffering, is giving us an example. The whole life of Jesus is an example, but the Apostle Peter is telling us that we have to look at Jesus in his suffering, and he's giving us an example. Now, we have, in this Holy Week, a major clash between God and the spirit of evil. We have this major clash unfolding in the passion and death of Jesus. Now, the way of God is the way of creation, light, and love. That's how God works. Creation, he builds things new. He builds things up all the time. Light, everything about God is honest and truthful. Love, the mystery of God is the mystery of pure love, and his Spirit brings people together in peace and in goodness. Now, the power of evil is the opposite of that. The power of evil is destruction, darkness, and hatred. Destruction, the spirit of evil, wants to move us to destroy goodness wherever we see it. Whatever good thing we see in life, if we're consumed by the power of evil, we're going to try to destroy it. Darkness, the power of evil, moves people to live by lies, falsehood, half-truths and half-lies and twisting truth and all kinds of things. That's not the way of God, that's the way of evil. And hatred, the power of evil, wants to destroy people's relationships to God and to one another. Wants them to have no love going on in their life. Well, we see that in the suffering of Jesus, you have this clash going on between the power of God and the power of the spirit of evil. And you have real-life people who are moved by the spirit of evil in destruction, in darkness, and in hatred. You see this in the fake religious leaders, the Pharisees, and also in Judas Iscariot, who wasn't a Pharisee. He was an apostle of the new covenant of Jesus. Both of them, Judas and the Pharisees, were moved by the spirit of evil, destruction. They see goodness in Jesus and in the other apostles. They got to fight it. They're going to try to destroy it. Darkness. They're going to say all kinds of lies and half-truths and falsehoods about Jesus and his community. And then hatred. Remember, the great command of Jesus that he said before he died was, love one another as I have loved you. And the spirit of evil wants to break that, wants to remove that from this world. It's a real spiritual clash going on in the suffering and death of Jesus. Somehow, this spiritual clash can manifest itself in our own lives, in our own present time. We can have to do battle against things that are destructive, dark, and hateful. And we got to make sure that we learn from Jesus and see how he did it. St. Peter says that Jesus suffered for us and left us an example to have us follow in his footsteps. So let's look at him. The Apostle Peter says he did no wrong. So in his clash against the spirit of evil, Jesus did no wrong. In other words, no sin. We got to have that same desire. We have to have that desire to live in the grace of God and do no wrong. Whenever we are facing the power of evil, we have to keep before us our number one priority is do no wrong. Do no wrong, no sin. You know, if you look at all the problems in the world, the big problems in the world and people's relationships between peoples and nations, if you told everybody in the world, just don't sin, do no wrong to anyone, there pretty much would be world peace. Imagine if every street gang had their number one rule was, we shall do no wrong. We shall have no sin in our lives, our personal lives. We shall live in a state of grace. The street gangs would be great organizations. You'd be like saying to your kids, well, son or daughter, when you grow up, I want you to join the gang over there. That gang, they own Main Street, they own Washington Street. They're tough people, but they're going to raise you up to be a good Christian. You'd have no problems. When you look at the corruptions that have afflicted the priesthood, if you look at all of those bad priests, you could say, if they just had one priority in their life, live in a state of grace, no sin, they wouldn't have the problems they have. Well, in the clash against the power of evil, we have to keep our priorities straight. No sin. We should do no wrong. See, the thing is we can experience the temptation in the face of evil to think that sin can get us ahead in life. No, that's not the way of Jesus. No wrong. Do no wrong. St. Peter says, no deceit was found in his mouth. No deceit. So Jesus was truthful, and he is truthful. So for ourselves, lying is an absolute no-no. It's something that we will not do. We'll stay away from it. We'll see lying as an evil thing, because that's what it is. You see, some people in their battle against evil can lie as a means to get ahead in this battle. But that's not the will of Jesus. It's not his way. It's not what he did. He could have lied his way out of the cross. He could have lied his way out of his suffering. He doesn't. He remains truthful. We got to be truthful and honest too. Honesty in all things. Then the Apostle Peter says, when Jesus was insulted, he returned no insult. So we don't want to belittle anyone, even those who have harmed us, even those who have been destructive and dark and hateful to us or to those around us. Jesus did not insult us or anyone. Peter says that he returned no insult. And the thing is, when we suffer, we have to remember that our goal is not to destroy the person or people who have caused us pain and anguish. See, remember, there are people who are on a path of destruction, darkness, and hatred, and they hurt people very badly. They abuse people, they lie to people, they bully them, they crush them. When you experience that, you're tempted to say, my number one goal is to destroy this person or destroy this group of people who have hurt me. Not a good idea. Because what will happen to you is you'll get consumed by the desire and power of destruction. And destruction is the way, the spirit of evil. Remember the way of God? Creation, light, and love. The way of evil? Destruction, darkness, and hatred. There's a good book I like to read. It's Moby Dick. It's a fiction book, but it's really truthful about the human condition. And Captain Ahab was this captain of the Pequod, and he was consumed with hatred and revenge for the white whale, Moby Dick, who had hurt him in the past. And he just wanted to destroy that whale. And his desire for destruction ended up destroying himself and his whole crew and his ship in the process. So when suffering comes our way, like Jesus, our goal is not to destroy the person or insult them that has caused us pain and anguish. Our goal is to be more like Jesus. Do you know when you get caught up in this desire to destroy someone who has harmed you in some big or small way, you start to bring destruction to a lot of people, even to a lot of good people that you did not intend to harm with your destructive way. Don't try to destroy someone who has harmed you. Then the Apostle Peter says that Jesus delivered himself up to the one who judges justly. This is something we have to have confidence in. If we are living like Jesus, if we are living on the path of creation, light, and love, and we experience an attack from the power of evil through people who want to destroy us and who work with darkness and hatred, well, we have to remember that God is not indifferent, and the way of God is still there. The plan of God is permanent, it's eternal. Even if those who do evil seem to be victorious all the time, seem to be in the positions of power, even if you feel weak and crushed and reduced to nothing, well, remember this. Those who do evil, those who have harmed you and hurt you, even if their conscience is dead, their soul is in anguish. Because every soul was made by God for communion with God. So when people live like the Pharisees and Judas Iscariot, when they live according to the spirit of evil, their soul is not in communion with God. Their soul is starving for grace, for goodness. And their soul is in torment. But your soul, if you're living like Jesus, even in the face of suffering and you're crushed, you're reduced to zero in your life, your soul is singing. Your soul is not in torment. You might be in torment. You might feel agitated and not a whole lot of peace, but your soul is fully alive in the light of God. So Jesus delivered himself up to his Father who judges justly. There's a passage in the Bible which says God punishes wicked conduct. Somehow the punishment that God has for evil is something that starts to affect people in this life and then ultimately in eternity. So those who do evil in their souls, they're actually experiencing a kind of punishment from God. But when you entrust yourself to the Lord and you live in the example of Jesus, your soul doesn't experience that punishment. Your soul is rejoicing in that experience. So this small passage from the Apostle Peter shows to us what we have to do in our part when we're brought into a battle against the power of evil. We don't want destruction coming forth from our hearts into this world. We don't want darkness and falsehood. We don't want hatred. We want creation. We want to build stuff up always. In other words, be positive, as people say. We want light. We want to be honest in everything, upfront and truthful. We want love. We want to bring people together. We want to lift people up. We want people to experience our love, not our hatred. So, brothers and sisters, as we move into Holy Week, however you are going to celebrate this week, whether it's in your church community or whether it's in your home just by praying or maybe watching a film about the suffering of Jesus. Remember that what Jesus goes through, in a way, is something that we're going to go to. A cosmic battle against the power of evil. Let's try to imitate Jesus. I'm going to read to you one more time, a little bit more slowly, this message from the Apostle Peter. Christ suffered for you and left you an example to have you follow in his footsteps. He did no wrong. No deceit was found in his mouth. When he was insulted, he returned no insult. When he was made to suffer, he did not counter with threats. Instead, he delivered himself up to the one who judges justly. In his own body, he brought your sins to the cross, so that all of us, dead to sin, could live in accord with God's will. By his wounds, you were healed. God bless you.